Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs' press secretary, Jocelyn Berry, has resigned after facing accusations of promoting violence against transphobes in a now deleted tweet, according to Fox News. The tweet in question included a gif of actress Gina Rollins in a scene from the movie Gloria holding two handguns, and Berry's caption read, "Us when we see transphobes." This came the same day transgender suspect Audrey Hale killed 6 people at a Christian school in Nashville earlier this week.
Governor Hobbs' office said yesterday in a statement the governor does not condone violence in any form. This administration holds mutual respect at the forefront of how we engage with one another. The post by the press secretary is not reflective of the values of the administration. The governor has received and accepted the resignation of this press secretary. Now, the Arizona Freedom Caucus tweeted, "Calling for gun violence is never acceptable." So this tweet did come after the shooting. It was in response to another tweet. They've both subsequently been deleted. The press secretary's tweet was screenshotted. I can't actually tell what it was in response to. I don't know that it specifically had anything to do with the shooting, but it was certainly in bad taste given what had happened, and just kind of in bad taste generally because it's not a good idea, especially if you're a press secretary, right? If you're like in communications, it should be communications 101, not to suggest that you want violence against people who, happen to disagree with you on this particular questions of being transphobic is not a crime or suggestive of violence itself. So there's it's not like self-defense or something. That said, I'm never overjoyed when people lose their jobs for tweeting the wrong thing. In fact, I tend to think this often goes too far. Now, she's in an explicitly communications role, and also a communications role on behalf of someone else. So I can certainly understand why Hobbs doesn't want this person doing that job anymore. So I don't really think it's necessarily cancel culture or something. But I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the thing that that's really sticking in my craw about this is that if there hadn't been a mass shooting at a school, this person would still have their job, right? This kind of talk about quote unquote transphobes is totally de rigueur, right? There's nothing out of the ordinary about this. There's a Trans Day of Vengeance on the books, I believe, for this Saturday. There's so much talk about a trans genocide that now people who are sort of in the trans camp and the ally camp have taken up a language that is extremely violent, because that is the appropriate language if there's an actual genocide happening, right? Now, it turns out the data does not support the view that there is a trans genocide. It does not support the view that trans people are more likely to face violence, because Americans are incredible people and don't think that way and don't see trans people that way. But I find it very interesting that the camp that is constantly going on about stochastic terrorism can then turn around and call people transphobes the way Congresswoman AOC did the other day to libs of TikTok, Chaya Raichik, right? And claim that transphobes are committing a genocide, and that is in no way considered stochastic terrorism, right? That is in no way considered to be an act of violence, or now I think we probably agree that no words are acts of violence, or it's a very high bar to meet an act of violence. But when you accuse people of committing genocide, you are putting a target on their back to a certain extent. And so I keep coming back to that, yes, of course it was in poor taste the day that a transgender individual murdered 3 babies and 3 adults who were trying to protect them. But if that hadn't happened, this would not be considered in any way out of the ordinary, and this person would still have their job. And I feel a little bit bothered by that, especially because of the standard of speech that the left itself has set up. And it really lends credence to the argument that Tucker Carlson has been making for the last week, which is this view that somehow on the left now they want no one to have guns except trans people. This kind of does lend credence to that. Is there another situation in which a leftist like this woman who worked for Katie Hobbs would have advocated for holding 2 guns and shooting people, right?
Although I have to say, I am hearing a lot of conservatives saying that the opposite of that everyone should have guns except trans people. Like, being trans should be evidence of mental illness, and you shouldn't be able to own a gun, which I think is the same kind of, identity politics trend.
Absolutely.
Or, suggesting that all trans people are dangerous or violent, because of this one incident. I think that's wrong if the group is trans people. I think that's wrong if the group is Muslim people, if the group is Bernie Sanders supporters, if the group is far-right MAGA people. You have to hold individuals accountable for their actions, not we saw in a lot of cases where there have been mass shootings where the perpetrator happens to be a white male. I've read so many articles about the toxicity of whiteness and how can we get rid of whiteness, and that is all coming from progressive people, and it's all. I mean, it's not even like statistically valid because yes, the majority of shooters are white males because white people are most of the population. It's not like out of step with what you would expect. So that is always like really dumb. But now I'm seeing people on both sides of the political spectrum can't resist the allure of the stigmatize the group whenever these things happen. They do a bad job on both sides of the political spectrum, I think, at resisting that temptation.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, and that is horrific. Of course, we should not be excluding trans people from, the Second Amendment, right? I mean, that is clearly a deplorable view. I do think that a lot of mass shootings happen in urban neighborhoods, and they get classified as crime, not mass shootings, because for some reason we're not allowed to care when the victims of mass shootings are Black. That's the standard that somehow got set by the media. So I think that is a real problem with categorization. But I completely agree with you. It is interesting that there have been a few on the right. I mean, I haven't seen this very, very much, but there have been a few people on the right who certainly are the first, in line to say, don't blame a group when it's their group, right? But suddenly now, we need to look into this rhetoric around trans people and so forth and classifying it as a mental illness. But I will say the idea that there is a double standard, I think it's undeniable at this point. And, last night I was volunteering and I volunteer with, there's a few high school kids who volunteer at the same time as me, and I was asking them, what they've seen online about this shooting, what they think about it, because we talk about the news. They hadn't seen anything about it, and they were completely unaware that the shooter was the alleged shooter was trans-identified. And that whenever there's a mass shooting in a school, their social media is full of it. They hadn't even heard about it, and these are kids that spend a lot of time on TikTok, and so it really. I mean, obviously it's anecdotal, but there is really this sense that this is being treated in a very different way than it would have been treated if it was, a white person, a white supremacist, a cisgendered person, somebody from one of those groups that the media very much enjoys taking on. And there was Jamal Bowman was making a big show of, why does nobody care about our children? Why does nobody care about our children? When in his own district, violent crime went up 30% last year, right? I mean, why does nobody care about those children? So of course there's, hypocrisy to go around for days as usual. Yeah,
I think we're going to talk about that aspect of this story next week, and we'll have more Rising right after this.